The courtroom fell silent as Ambassador Chun Wei stepped forward, her boots echoing against the crystalline floor of the Galactic Tribunal. Above her, the massive dome displayed the swirling colors of a dozen different worlds, each represented by their respective delegates. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. "The evidence is clear," announced Magistrate Zephyros, his three heads speaking in perfect unison. The Trilaxian's voice carried across the chamber with the authority of 10,000 years of galactic law. "Humanity stands accused of the systematic destruction of the Kepler 442 ecosystem, the unlawful colonization of protected territories, and the deliberate contamination of 17 pristine worlds." Chen's jaw tightened. She had reviewed the evidence countless times during the 3-month journey to the tribunal station. Every piece of data had been carefully manipulated, every testimony twisted to paint humanity as the aggressor. The real perpetrators sat among the accusers, their faces masks of righteous indignation. "The Vorthan Confederacy has provided irrefutable proof," continued the magistrate, his central head nodding toward a delegation of tall, pale beings with elongated skulls. "Sensor readings, atmospheric analyses, and witness testimonies all point to human vessels as the source of the ecological disasters." Ambassador Tishvaseskar of the Vorthan delegation rose gracefully, her movements fluid like water. "Honored Magistrate, we take no pleasure in these accusations. However, the evidence speaks for itself. Human expansion has left a trail of devastation across 7 star systems." Chun felt her translator implant buzz as angry murmurs filled the chamber. Representatives from 43 different species looked at her with expressions ranging from disappointment to outright hostility. The Aquari delegation's gills fluttered rapidly in agitation, while the insectoid Chithari clicked their mandibles in what she had learned was their equivalent of booing. "Your Honor," Chun said, stepping forward, "humanity categorically denies these charges. We have followed all colonization protocols established by this tribunal. Our terraforming techniques are sustainable and have been verified by independent surveyors." Magistrate Zephyros's left head tilted slightly. "The tribunal acknowledges humanity's denial. However, the evidence presented by our Vorthan allies is compelling. Do you have counter-evidence to present?" Chen's heart sank. They had suspected the setup from the beginning, but proving it was another matter entirely. The Vorthans had been planning this for decades, carefully positioning themselves to take control of the resource-rich systems humanity had been developing. Every piece of evidence they needed had been destroyed or corrupted. "We request access to the original sensor data from the affected systems," Chen said. "Our analysis suggests the readings have been tampered with." A ripple of shocked gasps echoed through the chamber. Accusing another species of evidence tampering was a serious charge that could result in immediate expulsion from the Galactic Council. Tiaskar's expression didn't change, but Chen caught the slight narrowing of her large, dark eyes. "Such accusations are unfounded and insulting," the Vorthan said smoothly. "Perhaps humanity's guilt has driven them to desperate measures." "Order!" Zephyros's 3 voices boomed simultaneously. "The tribunal will not tolerate baseless accusations without proof. Ambassador Chun, do you have evidence of this alleged tampering?" Chen's mouth went dry. They had theories, suspicions, and circumstantial evidence, but nothing that would stand up in a galactic court. The Vorthans had been too thorough, too careful in their manipulation. "We are still analyzing the data, Your Honor," she said, knowing how weak it sounded. "Then, this tribunal sees no reason to delay judgment," Zephyros announced. "The evidence against humanity is overwhelming. Their expansion has caused irreparable damage to multiple ecosystems, violated numerous galactic preservation laws, and shown complete disregard for established territorial boundaries." Chen watched in growing horror as the voting began. Species after species cast their votes, each one sealing humanity's fate. The Etherian Republic voted guilty with a musical chime that sounded like a funeral dirge. The Stone Singers of Gravitas voted with a thunderous rumble that shook the chamber. Even species that had previously maintained friendly relations with humanity sided against them. The vote stands at 37 guilty for abstentions and 2 not guilty, Zephyros announced. Humanity is found guilty of all charges. The sentence is immediate expulsion from the Galactic Council, forfeiture of all colonial claims, and restriction to their home system for a period of no less than 500 standard years. The chamber erupted in a mixture of approving sounds from various species. Chun felt the world spinning around her. 500 years of isolation would set humanity back millennia. They would become a backwater species, forgotten by galactic civilization, while the Vorthans claimed the systems they had worked so hard to develop. "Your Honor," Chun said desperately, "we request the right to present additional evidence. The laws of this tribunal allow for the evidence period has concluded." Zephyros cut her off. However, galactic law does provide for one final recourse. If humanity can present an object or witness of unquestionable authority that can vouch for their innocence, this tribunal will hear such testimony. Chen's hopes flickered momentarily before dying again. What could humanity possibly present that would carry more weight than the carefully orchestrated evidence against them? They were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. They had no ancient allies, no revered artifacts, no mysterious benefactors who might speak on their behalf. We have nothing of such authority," Chen admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. HFY Seskar's lips curved in what might have been a smile on a human face. "Perhaps this is for the best. Humanity's reckless expansion needed to be curtailed before more damage was done." As the tribunal prepared to make the judgment official, Chen's mind raced through everything humanity had encountered in their expansion across the stars. The ancient ruins on Kepler 442, the strange energy readings from the artifact they had discovered there, the way it had seemed to respond to human presence. The scientific team had been studying it for months, but the Vorthan attack had forced them to evacuate before completing their research. Wait. Chen's eyes widened as she remembered the final report from Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead xenoarchaeologist on Kepler 442. The artifact wasn't just responding to human presence. It was trying to communicate. The energy patterns weren't random. They were a language, one that seemed to recognize something about human neural patterns. "Your Honor," Chen called out, her voice carrying new strength. "I formally request a recess to retrieve an item that may be relevant to these proceedings." Zephyros's 3 heads conferred in rapid whispers before the center head spoke. "This tribunal will grant a 6-hour recess. However, Ambassador Chun, this is humanity's final opportunity. Use it wisely." As the chamber began to empty, Chen activated her communicator. "Dr. Martinez, I need you to bring the artifact from Kepler 442 to the tribunal station immediately. And, Sarah, bring everything you've learned about its communication patterns. Everything." The elderly archaeologist's voice crackled through the comm channel. "Chun, that artifact is ancient beyond measure. We're talking about technology that predates the formation of the Galactic Council by millions of years. Are you sure about this?" "It's our only chance," Chun replied, watching as HFY car and her delegation filed out of the chamber, their confidence radiating like heat from a star. "If there's even the smallest possibility that artifact can help us prove our innocence, we have to try." 6 hours later, Chen stood once again before the assembled tribunal. This time, she wasn't alone. Dr. Martinez stood beside her, along with a sealed containment unit that hummed with barely contained energy. The artifact inside was small, no larger than a human fist, but the readings from it had been off the charts ever since they brought it aboard the station. The tribunal recognizes Ambassador Chen's request to present additional evidence, Zephyros announced. "What does humanity offer in its defense?" Chen took a deep breath. "We present an artifact recovered from the ruins on Kepler 442, the very world we are accused of destroying. Our research indicates this object predates known galactic civilization and may have relevance to the charges against us. A murmur of interest rippled through the chamber. Ancient artifacts were rare and highly respected in galactic society. Many of the older species traced their own histories back to discoveries of such objects. The tribunal will examine this artifact, Zephyros said, his voice carrying new interest. Dr. Martinez, please present your findings. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The artifact appeared in 3 dimensions, its crystalline structure gleaming with internal light. This object was discovered in a sealed chamber beneath the Kepler 442 ruins. Our analysis indicates it is composed of materials unknown to current science, and it has been actively generating complex energy patterns since the moment we found it. What is the nature of these energy patterns? Asked Counselor Vexhai of the Temporal Consortium. That's where it gets interesting, Martinez replied. The patterns appear to be a form of communication, but they only activate in the presence of human neural patterns. We've tried exposing it to other species, but it remains dormant. THYSS car stood abruptly. This is clearly a fabrication. Humanity is grasping at straws to avoid the consequences of their actions. The artifact can speak for itself, Chin said quietly. Dr. Martinez, please activate the containment field. Martinez's hands moved across the control panel, and the sealed unit opened with a soft hiss. The artifact rose slowly into view, supported by a shimmering energy field. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber held its collective breath. Then, the artifact began to glow. The light was soft at first, but it grew steadily brighter until it filled the entire chamber with a warm, golden radiance. The energy patterns Dr. Martinez had described became visible, flowing around the artifact in complex geometric shapes that seemed to dance in the air. By the ancient laws, whispered Counselor Quintera of the Sage Collective. I've seen descriptions of such artifacts in our oldest texts, but never witnessed one active. The patterns suddenly coalesced into recognizable symbols that hung in the air above the artifact. To Chen's amazement, they weren't in any human language, but somehow she could understand their meaning as clearly as if they were spoken aloud. The symbols pulsed once, twice, and then began to form words that echoed through every mind in the chamber. I am the keeper of truth, the last voice of the architects who came before. For eons beyond count, I have waited in the depths of this world, watching, listening, recording. The children of Earth have awakened me from my long silence. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 43 species began talking simultaneously, their voices creating a cacophony of alien languages that the translation system struggled to process. Several delegates had fallen to their knees, while others backed away from the artifact, as if it might explode at any moment. Impossible, breathed Counselor Thane Moore of the Ancient Keepers. The architect artifacts were lost millions of years ago. They are legends, myths spoken of in our oldest texts. The artifact's glow intensified, and the voice continued, somehow cutting through the noise and reaching every mind present. I am no myth, children of the Spiral Arm. I have witnessed the birth and death of 1,000 civilizations, recorded their deeds, both noble and corrupt. The architects placed me here to serve as witness and judge when the need arose. Magistrate Zephyros's 3 heads moved independently, each trying to process what was happening. The Trilaxian judicial system was based on logic and evidence, not ancient mysticism. Yet here was an artifact from a civilization that had supposedly created the technology that formed the foundation of galactic society. If you're truly what you claim to be, Zephyros said carefully, then you have witnessed the events surrounding Kepler 442 and the other worlds in question. Indeed, I have. For the past 73 standard years, I have observed the systematic deception orchestrated by those who call themselves the Vorthan Confederacy. Every eye in the chamber turned toward the Vorthan delegation. Ambassador HFY Seskar had gone rigid, her usually pale complexion now completely white. Her fellow delegates huddled around her, their elongated skulls bent together in hurried whispers. "This is absurd," HFY Seskar declared, standing to her full impressive height. "We are being asked to accept the word of some ancient device that could easily be a human fabrication. The evidence against humanity is solid and verifiable." The artifact pulsed with brighter light, and Chun felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and ancient was examining her thoughts with gentle curiosity. "The Vorthen speaks of evidence," the voice said, and now there was something like amusement in its tone. "Shall I present the true evidence to this assembly?" Without waiting for a response, the artifact projected a holographic display that made Dr. Martinez's presentation looked primitive by comparison. The image showed Kepler 442 as it had appeared 73 years ago, a vibrant world covered in blue oceans and green continents. "Observe," the voice commanded. The arrival of the first Vorthen survey ships, 17 months before any human vessel reached this system. The display showed sleek ships that Chun recognized as Vorthen designs, though they bore markings she had never seen before. The vessels moved into orbit around the planet and began deploying what appeared to be standard survey equipment. "The Vorthens discovered what they called the Genesis sites," the artifact continued. "Locations where my creators had conducted experiments in accelerated evolution. These sites contained technology that could transform entire ecosystems in a matter of decades rather than millennia." Counselor Vexhai leaned forward in his floating chair. "The Temporal Consortium has heard whispers of such technology, but we believed it was theoretical." "Far from theoretical," the artifact replied. "The Vorthens understood the potential immediately. They began extracting the Genesis technology, but their methods were crude. The first extraction site suffered a catastrophic failure that poisoned the surrounding ocean with exotic radiation." The holographic display shifted to show a section of Kepler 442's largest ocean, turning in sickly yellow-green color. Marine life died in massive numbers, their bodies floating to the surface in numbers too large to count. When a human colony ship arrived 18 months later, the artifact continued. The Vorthens had already caused significant damage to 3 separate extraction sites. However, they had also discovered something troubling about the technology. The image changed again, showing detailed scans of the Genesis sites. Complex energy patterns flowed around ancient machinery that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human science couldn't name. The Genesis technology would only respond to specific neural patterns, the voice explained. The Vorthens possessed the intelligence to understand its function, but lacked the psychological configuration to activate it safely. Their extraction attempts grew more desperate and destructive. Ambassador Seskar had remained silent during the presentation, but now she spoke up, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. "Even if we accept this fantastic tale, it proves nothing. The humans could have programmed this device to tell any story they wished." Chun started to object, but the artifact responded first. "The Vorthen ambassador raises a valid point about deception," it said, and Chen's heart sank. "Therefore, I shall provide verification that cannot be falsified." The holographic display suddenly expanded to show not just Kepler 442, but a view of the entire star system from an impossible vantage point. "I am not merely an observer," the voice explained. "I am connected to a network of monitoring devices placed throughout this galaxy by my creators. Through this network, I have direct access to sensor data from thousands of automated stations." New images began to appear in rapid succession. Vorthen ships dumping toxic waste into the atmosphere of a mining world. Vorthen extraction teams causing landslides that buried entire forests. Vorthen weapons testing that left craters the size of cities on uninhabited moons. For 73 years, the Vorthens have conducted what they call the Long Harvest, the artifact continued. Their plan was simple: extract as much Genesis technology as possible while ensuring that blame fell upon another species. Humanity's arrival in the affected systems provided them with the perfect scapegoat. The evidence was overwhelming. Chun watched as the display showed Vorthan crews planting false sensor readings, contaminating sites that humans would later survey, and even staging fake disasters timed to coincide with human exploration missions. "This is the most sophisticated frame-up I have ever witnessed," Dr. Martinez whispered. "They've been planning this for decades." Counselor Quintera of the Sage Collective stood slowly, her ancient form trembling with emotion. "If these recordings are accurate, then this tribunal has nearly committed a grave injustice. The evidence against humanity was fabricated. More than fabricated," the artifact said, its glow pulsing in what Chun was beginning to recognize as emphasis. "The Vorthan Confederacy has violated the most fundamental laws of galactic civilization. They have committed genocide against indigenous species on 4 worlds, stolen technology that could benefit all galactic civilization, and attempted to frame an innocent species for their crimes." The chamber fell silent except for the nervous clicking of Chithri mandibles and the rapid breathing of various oxygen-dependent species. Chun looked around at the assembled delegates and saw the same expression on every face: shock, horror, and growing anger. Furthermore, the artifact continued. "The Vorthans have been using the extracted Genesis technology to enhance their own military capabilities. The peaceful confederation that sits before you today is actually a rapidly expanding empire with conquest as its primary goal." That statement caused an even stronger reaction. Several military representatives began speaking urgently into their communicators, probably alerting their home fleets to the potential threat. The implications were staggering. If the Vorthans had been building a secret military force using architect technology, they could potentially threaten the entire galactic civilization. Ambassador Tichwa finally spoke, her voice now cold and calculating rather than emotional. "Even if we accept that this artifact is genuine, it has presented no proof that can be independently verified. We have only its word against established evidence." The artifact's response was immediate and devastating. "Very well. I shall provide proof that this tribunal can verify immediately." The holographic display changed to show the interior of what appeared to be a massive space station hidden inside an asteroid. Thousands of ships were docked in the facility, all bearing Vorthan military markings. But these weren't the elegant, peaceful vessels of the Confederacy. These were warships, sleek and deadly, armed with weapons technology that looked far in advance of anything in the galactic arsenal. "The coordinates of this facility are being transmitted to all representatives now," the artifact announced. "The station is located in the dead zone between spiral arms, approximately 47 light-years from the nearest inhabited system. I suggest your military advisors investigate these coordinates immediately." Chun watched as delegates throughout the chamber checked their personal communicators. The coordinates were real, transmitted on official tribunal frequencies that couldn't be faked or hacked. "There's more," the artifact continued. "The Vorthans are planning to begin their expansion within 6 standard months. Their first targets are the resource-rich systems currently claimed by the Etherian Republic and the Stonesinger colonies." That caused an immediate uproar. Representatives from both mentioned species began shouting in their respective languages, while their military attaches frantically worked their communication devices. "This is preposterous," Tichwa protested, but her voice lacked its earlier confidence. "You have only the word of this device, which could be projecting false data or outdated information." "Then, let us verify the accuracy of my information," the artifact replied smoothly. "I possess detailed records of every Vorthan military communication for the past 5 years, including the personal logs of Admiral Kaisistar, your supreme military commander." The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be the interior of a Vorthan command ship. A tall figure in elaborate military uniform stood before a tactical display showing the galaxy with various systems marked in different colors. Admiral's Log, Stardate 847.3. The figure began speaking in the Vorthan language, with universal translation providing subtitles. The long harvest proceeds ahead of schedule. Human expansion into the target systems has provided excellent cover for our operations. The Genesis technology extraction from Kepler 442 alone has advanced our weapons development by decades. Scifistories' face change as she recognized the voice. Several other Vorthan delegates had turned pale, their elongated heads drooping in what she had learned was a sign of extreme distress in their species. Phase 2 preparations are nearly complete, the recorded admiral continued. Once the humans are eliminated as a threat to our operations, we can begin the systematic conquest of the Outer Rim systems. The Genesis technology will allow us to terraform conquered worlds to our specifications within decades rather than centuries. The recording continued for several more minutes, detailing military preparations, target lists, and invasion timelines that painted the Vorthans as exactly what the artifact claimed, a hidden empire preparing to conquer their neighbors. When the recording ended, the chamber was completely silent. Even the normally talkative Aquari delegates had stopped their gill-fluttering conversations. Every representative in the room was staring at the Vorthan delegation with expressions ranging from shock to outright hostility. "I believe that concludes my presentation of evidence," the artifact said calmly. "The tribunal now has sufficient information to render a just verdict." Magistrate Zephyros stood slowly, his three heads moving in perfect synchronization as he processed the magnitude of what had just been revealed. The ancient laws of the tribunal were clear. Evidence presented by an architect artifact was considered absolute truth, beyond question or appeal. But the implications of accepting that truth would reshape the entire political structure of the galaxy. "Ambassador Futuristic, Zephyros said formally, how do you respond to these accusations?" HFY remained standing, but Chun could see her hands trembling slightly. The Vorthan's usual composure had cracked, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. The Confederacy maintains its position that this artifact is unreliable. Ancient technology can be corrupted, its data manipulated by those who discover it. Corruption is indeed possible, the artifact acknowledged, its voice carrying what sounded like mild amusement. Therefore, I offer this tribunal a demonstration of my reliability. Without warning, the chamber's lights dimmed as the artifact's glow intensified dramatically. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy, and Chun felt her hair standing on end from static electricity. "I'm accessing the tribunal station's own sensor array," the voice announced. "Through the quantum entanglement communication system installed in this facility, I can provide real-time verification of my claims." The holographic display shifted to show a view of space near the coordinates the artifact had provided earlier. The image was clearly live, with timestamp markers showing current galactic standard time. "Behold," the artifact said, "the hidden fleet of the Vorthan Empire." The view zoomed in on what had appeared to be an empty region of space between star systems. As the sensors penetrated deeper, the outline of a massive asteroid became visible. But this wasn't a natural space rock. The surface was covered with docking bays, weapon emplacements, and shield generators that were clearly artificial. "This is impossible," breathed Counselor Vexhai. "Our own long-range sensors would have detected such a facility." The Vorthans have been using Genesis technology to bend space around the installation, the artifact explained. To normal sensors, it appears to be empty space. Only quantum-level detection can penetrate the deception. As if to prove the point, the view shifted to show the interior of the hidden base. Hundreds of warships filled massive hangar bays, each one armed with weapons that looked far more advanced than anything in the current galactic arsenal. But what caught Chen's attention were the markings on the ship's hulls. They weren't Vorthan symbols at all. "Those are architect glyphs," Dr. Martinez whispered. They've been reverse engineering ancient technology. Correct. The artifact confirmed. The Vorthons discovered early in their expansion that Genesis technology could be adapted for military purposes. They have spent the past century building a fleet capable of conquering the entire galaxy. The display zoomed in on one particular ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything in the current galactic fleet. Its hull was covered in glowing patterns that seemed to shift and move like living things. The flagship Dominion's will, the artifact continued, armed with gravitational weaponry capable of destroying entire star systems. Its first target, according to Admiral Kusistar's logs, is the human homeworld of Earth. Chun felt her blood turn to ice. The implications were staggering. If the Vorthons had weapons capable of destroying star systems, they wouldn't just conquer the galaxy. They would reshape it according to their will, eliminating any species they considered inconvenient. This changes everything, Magistrate Zephyros said quietly. If this information is accurate, we are facing a threat to all galactic civilization. The information is accurate, the artifact stated with absolute certainty. I have been monitoring Vorthon activities for over 7 decades. Their expansion plans are detailed and comprehensive. Within 10 years, they intend to control 70% of inhabited star systems. Ambassador HFY Sci'Car had been silent during this latest revelation, but now she spoke with a voice that had lost all pretense of diplomacy. Even if your fantastic claims were true, it would be far too late to stop us. Our preparations are complete. The admission sent shock waves through the chamber. Several delegates gasped audibly, while others began frantically contacting their home governments. Chun realized that HFY Sci'Car had just confirmed everything the artifact had revealed. You admit to the conspiracy, Chun said, stepping forward. You admit to framing humanity for your own crimes. HFY Sci'Car's expression twisted into something that might have been a smile. Humanity was always going to be eliminated eventually. Your rapid expansion and adaptability made you a threat to our long-term plans. The tribunal charges were simply convenient. The Vorthon ambassador has just confessed to high treason against galactic civilization, Zephyros announced, his voice booming through the chamber. The charges against humanity are hereby dismissed with prejudice. But Chun barely heard the vindication she had fought so hard to achieve. Her mind was focused on the larger implications. How long do we have before they begin their expansion? Admiral Kusistar's most recent logs indicate the first wave will launch in 4 months, the artifact replied. However, their discovery at this tribunal may accelerate their timeline. As if summoned by those words, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The tribunal's emergency communication system activated, projecting the image of Fleet Admiral Torres of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Ambassador Chun, Torres said urgently, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout Vorthon space. It looks like they're mobilizing their entire fleet. Chun felt her heart sink. How many ships? Our best estimates put it at over 3,000 vessels, most of them of unknown design. They're moving toward the border systems now. The chamber erupted in panic as representatives realized the immediate danger. The Chithari delegates began clicking their mandibles in rapid distress patterns, while the Aquari were flashing colors that Chen's translator identified as emergency warnings. Order, Zephyros commanded, but his own voice carried new tension. The tribunal must coordinate an immediate response to this threat. With respect, Magistrate, Chun said, coordination will take time we don't have. The Vorthon fleet is already in motion. The human speaks truth, the artifact interjected. However, there is hope. The Genesis technology the Vorthons have stolen is incomplete. They possess the weapons and defensive systems, but they lack the most crucial component. Which is? Asked Dr. Martinez. The navigation protocol, the artifact replied. True architect technology requires a specific neural pattern to function at full capacity. The Vorthons can operate the equipment, but they cannot achieve its maximum potential. Chun felt a spark of hope. And humans have the right neural pattern? Not just humans, the artifact said, its glow intensifying. Any species evolve on worlds touched by architect experiments. Earth was one of 17 worlds where my creators conducted long-term evolutionary studies. The human neural pattern was shaped over millions of years to be compatible with our technology. The implications hit her like a thunderbolt. You're saying humanity can use this Genesis technology better than the Vorthons? Infinitely better, the artifact confirmed. In the hands of a compatible species, Genesis technology is not merely a tool of war. It is a force of creation capable of healing damaged worlds, enhancing biological systems, and defending against any known threat. Counselor Quintera stood slowly, her ancient form radiating new energy. The Sage Collective's oldest texts speak of the chosen heirs of the architects. We believe them to be myths. Not myths, the artifact said gently. The architects knew their time was ending. They prepared for the day when their heirs would be needed to defend what they had built. But the Vorthons have had 70 years to study this technology, HFY Story protested. They understand its capabilities better than any newcomer species. They understand its crude applications, the artifact replied. But they have never achieved true synthesis. Watch. The holographic display changed to show the artifact's own crystalline structure in incredible detail. As they watched, the crystal began to resonate with patterns that seemed to reach directly into Chen's mind. She felt something awakening in her thoughts, as if doors were opening to rooms she had never known existed. Around the chamber, other humans were experiencing the same sensation. Dr. Martinez gasped as understanding flooded her consciousness. Admiral Torres, still connected through the communication link, suddenly straightened with new awareness. I can feel it, Martinez whispered. The connections, the pathways. It's like learning to see a new spectrum of light. The activation sequence, Chun said, somehow knowing the words were correct. We can interface directly with the technology. Precisely, the artifact confirmed. The Vorthons require computer interfaces and complex programming to operate stolen Genesis technology. The heirs require only thought and will. The chamber had gone silent again as representatives from 43 species absorbed what they had just witnessed. Chen looked around and saw expressions ranging from awe to fear to desperate hope. The question now, Magistrate Zephyros said carefully, is whether humanity will accept the responsibility that comes with this heritage. Chen didn't hesitate. We accept, but we'll need help. This isn't a human problem anymore. It's a threat to every free species in the galaxy. The Temporal Consortium pledges our support. Counselor Vexhai announced immediately. The Stone Singers will lend their strength, rumbled the representative from Gravitas. One by one, species that have been ready to condemn humanity just hours before now pledged their assistance. The Etherians offered their vast communication networks. The Chithari provided their unmatched manufacturing capabilities. The Aquari contributed their expertise in quantum physics. The Alliance will not be enough alone, the artifact warned. The Vorthon fleet is already moving. You have perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the first target systems. Then, we need to level the playing field, Chun said grimly. Are there other Genesis sites? Other sources of this technology? 17 worlds in this galaxy contain major installations, the artifact replied. But most are in Vorthon-controlled space. There is, however, one exception. The display shifted to show a star map with various points highlighted in different colors. One particular system, relatively close to Earth, pulsed with golden light. Kepler 442, Dr. Martinez said, recognizing the coordinates. The primary Genesis site in this region, the artifact confirmed. The Vorthons damaged the facility, but could not access its core systems. With the proper neural interface, those systems can be restored and activated. Chun felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. What would full activation accomplish? The Kepler 442 site contains enough Genesis technology to upgrade the defensive capabilities of every Allied fleet. It can also restore the damaged ecosystems on all affected worlds and provide the foundation for technologies that would revolutionize galactic civilization. And the cost? Chen asked, knowing there had to be one. The activation requires a permanent neural interface with the system, the artifact said quietly. The operator becomes part of the technology itself, guiding and directing it, but unable to exist separately from it. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Someone would have to sacrifice their individual existence to save galactic civilization. I'll do it, Chen said without hesitation. No, Dr. Martinez interrupted. I'm a xenoarchaeologist. I understand the technology better than anyone else. With respect to you both, Admiral Torres's voice came through the communication link. This decision requires someone with military command experience. The Genesis technology will need to coordinate multiple fleets across dozens of star systems. Chen looked around the chamber and saw the same determination in every human face. They all understood what was at stake, and they were all willing to pay the price. The choice will be made when we reach Kepler 442, she decided. Right now, we need to focus on getting there before the Vorthan fleet destroys everything we're trying to protect. The artifact's glow pulsed once more, and Chun felt that strange sensation of connection again. But this time it was different. Instead of opening new pathways in her mind, it felt like the artifact was saying goodbye. My purpose here is complete, the voice said, growing fainter. I have revealed the truth and identified the heirs. The future now depends on your choices. Wait, Chen called out. We need more information. We need guidance. You have everything you need, the artifact replied, its light beginning to dim. Trust in your heritage, trust in each other, and remember that the greatest technology ever created is not a weapon or a tool. It is hope. With those words, the artifact's glow faded to a gentle pulse that seemed to match the rhythm of Chen's heartbeat. The ancient voice was silent, but she could feel its presence watching, waiting to see what humanity would do with the incredible gift they had been given. As the tribunal session officially ended and delegates rushed to contact their home governments, Chun stood looking at the artifact and feeling the weight of the galaxy's future pressing down on her. In 2 weeks, the largest battle in galactic history would begin. Humanity had gone from condemned criminals to the galaxy's last hope in the span of a single day. No pressure, she whispered to herself, and somehow she thought she heard the artifact's voice whisper back in agreement.